afterwards to all registrants. Thank you, Liz. Please send us your questions in the chat and we will address them. And please also take a moment to introduce yourselves to your fellow environmental commissioners in the chat with your name and your municipality so you can all see who's attending, where you're coming from, and make some connections there. Today's session, this is a very simple agenda. It's the field trip, and then we're going to have Q&A afterwards, after our virtual field trip. And I wanted to, if you haven't already heard about this, please save the date for ANJEC's second virtual Earth Day celebration. We will be using the Hop-In platform, and everybody will, environmental commissions will have their own booths. You can promote your work. You can see what other people are doing. There are a chance to ask questions about ANJEC services and the plastic pollution reduction law. We'll have a special booth for that. And there will also be a group meditation guided by Earth Spirit. So keep an eye out on your inbox for more information about that. And then thank you. I'd like to say to all of you for showing up today, for all the work that you do, for your support of ANJEC, for your municipalities who have joined ANJEC, and for all of the volunteer work that you do to improve your environment and to improve your communities. I want to thank you all for that. And if you would like to share more, I know some of you also donate in addition. You can do that at our website. So I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We're lucky enough to have some people from the Atlantic County Utilities Authority. We have Joseph Pantalone. I'm sorry, Joe. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that properly. If it's
you did very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to check that. As Vice President of the Atlantic County Utilities Authority Wastewater Division, Joseph Pantalone oversees the 40 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and regional collection system that serves approximately 225,000 residents of Atlantic County. Since joining ACUA in 2013, he has concentrated his leadership efforts on the improvement and sustainability of the wastewater treatment plant collection system and its employees. He's implemented a revitalization plan to ensure the replacement of essential equipment and infrastructure, as well as the general maintenance and organization of the facility, and has overseen the development of resiliency projects that will protect the crucial facility during a flood or severe storm. Pantalone has also undertaken the creation of an operational management plan that incorporates strategic planning, continuity planning, and asset management. With an eye to the future, he looks to further improve ACUA's environmental impact by partnering with the local community in beneficial wastewater reuse projects and capturing the heat generated from biosolids incineration for electricity. He currently serves as the Association of Environmental Authorities Legislative Committee and was elected to their Board of Trustees in 2021. He serves on the Atlantic County Groundwater Advisory Committee and serves as Vice President of the New Jersey Water Environment Association South Section. He served on the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce for more than 20 years, including 3 years as its president, and is a recipient of the Chamber's Outstanding Service to the Community Award. He's also a former member of Atlantic County's Solid Waste Advisory Council and the Atlantic County Economic Advisory Committee. He is a graduate of James Madison University, go Dukes, in Harrisonburg, Virginia, where he received a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, Sociology, and a Master of Arts in Personnel Administration. He resides in Hamilton, New Jersey. So welcome, Joe, and thank you for sharing with us. We also have Amy Menzel. Amy began her career in the Atlantic County Utilities Authority in 1996 and has worked in a variety of positions at the authority before taking on the position of Communications Manager in 2009. Amy is responsible for internal and external communications at the ACUA, as well as education and outreach activities, including tours of ACUA facilities, both virtual and in person. Amy values the opportunity her work provides not only to promote the essential work done by the authority, but also to help empower others to understand their potential to make positive change in their communities. She is a local coordinator for the Rutgers Environmental Stewards Program, and she also serves as a co-chair for the Atlantic Cape May County Sustainable Jersey Hub, a resource for local green teams. Amy serves on her town's environmental commission in Hamilton, New Jersey, and is the chair of the Green Committee in Hamilton. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Stockton University, and she resides in Hamilton. So thank you all. You both do like wonderful work. In addition to your actual work, a lot of like wonderful volunteer and community work. And so thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to the presentation. So now I will stop sharing and you guys can go ahead and share your screen and get the the virtual field trip going. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right.
Well, first of all, on behalf of the ACUA, thank you for allowing us to share what we do every day. I'm fortunate to have Amy on my team, and their role is community outreach, which they do a wonderful job. Years ago in the wastewater industry, you used to want to stay under the radar. Our approach is much, much different to that. We are very much out in the community, and it's through the efforts of our authority relations staff that we are as prominent as we are in the community, and as well known as we are. So with that, we're going to start giving you a little tour of how we operate our facilities, what are our goals and objectives, and how we integrate clean energy into our process on a daily basis.
Sure. Click your mouse. There we go.
So as Sarah indicated, we are in Atlantic County. We service that blue region, which is in the central or southern region of Atlantic County. And for all intents and purposes, we're mainly on the eastern side of the county. The western side is predominantly rural. In my hometown of Hamilton, New Jersey, and a neighboring community of Buena Borough, they have their own wastewater treatment plants, but between the two jurisdictions, it's mainly well and septic, which kind of delineates us away from the northern section where most of the communities are predominantly on public water and sewer. ACUA operates a wastewater division and a solid waste division. We are actually filming this or doing the video from our headquarters, which is where our landfill and composting and recycling center transfer station are located. As Sarah mentioned, that's our service demographic. We serve about 275 people, which is over 100,000 households and over close to 550 square miles. Our facility is rated at 40 million gallons a day. It's considered an activated sludge treatment plant. We operate 20 regional pumping stations. In addition to that, we have shared service relationships with some of the communities that we serve. So our collection system entity services over 120 pumping stations a week. That's quite a task for about 10 individuals on that team. We service 14 member municipalities, of which Atlantic City is our largest contributor. As Atlantic City goes, so does the rest of the county, and that's been a roller coaster ride as you follow the news and everything else, particularly after Sandy and with the competition of casino gaming across the country, and then most recently COVID. These are some of the pitfalls that Atlantic City has faced, not only Atlantic City, but others, but it seems to hit Atlantic City a little bit harder than most as the economic engine is up and down. We treat about 27 to 30 million gallons a day, even though we're rated for 40 million gallons, and our ultimate discharge is out into the ocean, and we'll go through the treatment process in some of the other slides. That gives you just a footprint of where we are in the eastern side of the county. Again, we service 20 pump stations. Most of those dots are the old treatment plants that were decommissioned prior to or at the advent of the Clean Water Act in the 70s. So all of those areas, and if you could just point to maybe as far as Smithville, Oceanville, Seaview, Absecon, all the way down that corridor. Everything to the west of that was newer. And when we say newer, we're talking about 1990. So we took care of the barrier islands originally, some of the mainland, and then we gravitated out to the perimeter, which essentially is considered Pineland's growth corridor. So for all intents and purposes, that's the extremity of our system. I started my career where it says Mays Landing, and I was the executive director of that utilities authority. And instrumental during my time, we were decommissioning that plant and joining the ACUA network. Long story short, I ended up here at the end product. So next slide, please. Just again, that is the map of the entire county. And as you can see, as I pointed out, most of the area to the top of the map is predominantly rural and unserved by our network. And that one dot, that Mays Landing dot right there, that's about the extremity of our service area. And almost parallel to that is Egg Harbor City, which is the furthest we go in that area as well. And again, that's just a picture of one of our regional pumping stations. Most of those dots were former wastewater treatment plants, and they were converted into large pumping stations upon which we convey the network of local flow to our regional system and ultimately to our facility in Atlantic City. So a little bit about the wastewater treatment plant. Again, anywhere from 27 to 30 million gallons a day. Interesting enough, COVID really took a hit on Atlantic City. So therefore it took a hit on our flows. Our flows were probably the lowest they have been since the 70s, which is quite interesting. And soon, we hope, and so does Atlantic City, to start ramping up again. We have a 24/7, 360-day operation, and our permit, because of ocean discharge, we are obligated to meet 85% removal of contaminated biological process in our stream. We are generally over 95 plus in our treatment process. So this is kind of an overview, and I'm going to take the dot here. You're going to see various processes here as I explain them. So essentially, where I am pointing to now is the Headworks Project or Headworks structure. There are 4 mains that come into the Headworks structure, one from Atlantic City, one from the mainland, one from Brigantine, which was an island to our north, and a small little subdivision across the street. So 4 pipelines, varying in sizes, upwards to 48 inches, come into this Headworks facility. At the Headworks, that's where we screen all debris that comes into the facility, of which you're not supposed to flush down the toilet, but you'd be surprised what we do see. One of the false advertisement is flushable wipes. So this is my editorial comment. There is nothing flushable except for toilet paper. So if you learn anything from this lesson, please do not flush anything down the toilet except toilet paper. So from the Headworks, where we screen out all of the extraneous debris, we go into what they call primary clarifiers. We have 5 of them, as you can see. And at the primary clarifiers, what we're doing is trying to scrape the solids to the bottom of those tanks, which will be conveyed to our, what we call our solids handling aspect of our operation. From there, from the Headworks to the primaries, this is what we call our aeration basin. There are 6 quadrants. Each have 4 motors. We call them egg beaters. And what they do is aerate the wastewater that is coming through the process. This is the predominance of where the activity for cleanliness happens. This is where the biological process takes its course. This is where we mix and introduce organisms that feed off of the biosolids. And the art and the science of this is to balance the bugs so there's not too many in there eating each other and not sufficient enough to feed off the waste. From that portion, we go to secondary clarifiers, which are identical in nature to the primaries, but essentially it's another polishing of the solids, and they're more in suspension now, trying to push whatever's left to the bottom and send it to the solids handling aspect. After secondary treatment, we get into what we call our equalization basin. Essentially, this is where we store until we pump out to the ocean, and this building contains that pumping apparatus. whereby you will see this pipeline, which travels from this location to a section between Ventnor and Atlantic City. It's about a 4-mile run, and we have a pipeline that goes 1.5 miles into the ocean for ocean discharge. Again, about 27 to 30 million gallons a day on average. Once again, Amy will get into the green industry aspect of this, but as just from an overview, this is our solar farm. And of course, our iconic windmills that we do get a lot of folks to come and visit that just because of the sheer nature. And we give them this tour, even though they didn't want it. Okay. So that's the wet end side. The solids handling side is comprised of what we do here. This particular area is where we thicken the sludge. Then we bring it to a blending, a further thickening, and blend it in this area. And we send it up to the top of this building for dewatering with centrifuge technology, and ultimately for incineration. So this building here contains our incinerator. This contains our other incinerator, which is a standby unit to the larger unit. We do take sludge from neighboring communities, most predominantly from Cape May. Cape May is very seasonally oriented. We have 6 25-yard cans come in from Cape May in the summertime. And after Labor Day, that dissipates down to 2. So they are a very seasonal operation. What's beneficial to us about being in incineration, it helps us stabilize our rates because we obviously have a revenue stream from our outside customers. Interesting enough too on this slide, this area here is the remnants of the Atlantic City Sewerage Company, upon which who treated waste from Atlantic City prior to the Atlantic County Utility Authority being formed. And what you will see later on the slides is everybody only had to adhere to what they call primary treatment. So what they did was essentially, in our business, took the lumps out and opened up a valve and let it flow right into the thoroughfare there. And that was common practice across the board prior to the Clean Water Act. And what happened then, you couldn't shellfish, you couldn't swim in the ocean because of the lack of secondary treatment, which was the mandate of the Clean Water Act in the late 60s to mid 70s. So that kind of gives you the overview of what we do. The important part, other noteworthy part, we're one of 5 entities in the state of New Jersey that still incinerate biosolids. You cannot ocean dump anymore, and there's good reason for that. You cannot landfill sludge in New Jersey. You can compost, or you could haul off to another state. But given our footprint and where we are geographically, that is not an option for us. Incineration is the most viable option as it stands now. Okay, so that's the overview. We're going next slide. So what I talked about earlier is pre-Clean Water Act. You can see the red on the left graphic. That's where shellfish and bathing were prohibited because of bad water quality. Post creation of the regional facility and decommissioning of all of the wastewater treatment plants that were contributor, all those dots, we became centralized. So you could see on the right screen, that's where our plant is, and there's no more dots other than there are pumping stations now. And you could see our outfall into the ocean on the Ventnor Atlantic City border. And the good news there, very, very limited red dots, and mainly the ones that remain, or the red graphic, remains because that's stormwater runoff. But because of the creation of regional wastewater facilities, the shellfishing has come back into fruition, as well as bathing, and no fear of beach closures. Just give you a little bit of before and after. This is what I like to do on the tour. You can see coming up how it comes in and how nasty the water is, and this is what we discharge into the ocean. And our solids, and as we said, we incinerate, and the incinerator byproduct is an ash disposal. which we bring to our sister agency, the landfill, and we use as landfill cover. As you can see, where does the waste come from? As I mentioned, we have 4 major pipelines coming into our facility. And we also take on the right graphic is septic haulers, which is just from the rural areas, we treat that waste as well. So I mentioned earlier the first graphic or the first structure. The before shot, before I came here, I asked all of the employees what if it was their druthers, what would be the first project they would like to see occur? Well, you could understand why they picked the headwork structure. I hope you can see. To the left is what they used to have to do when all of the debris that I mentioned shouldn't be flushed down the toilet is flushed down the toilet. They would have to rake that off manually and drag that buggy to a compactor. The new facility, and I'll take the reins again, we have 3 channels that come into our facility from the 4 pipes. We only operate 2 at a given flow, and when storm surge comes in, we turn all 3 on. But what you can see here is we screen by these units here as opposed to those units there. It's automatically conveyed to this central location and conveyed through screw process into a dumpster that's outside of this graphic. That is why I think they like this project, so they don't have to touch anything anymore. I don't blame them. In this picture, it's not too readily available, but this is some of the stuff we collect and show to our tours of what goes down the toilet, cell phones and toys and whatnot, and flushable wipes. This is an extraction of what comes into the plant. They all ball up, and this is what we have to remove in addition to the screening process occasionally, and more often than not. So again, my one thing, if you take away from here, flushable wipes are not flushable. Back to you. So again, this is just a close-up of the overview. This is the primary settling. We're trying to settle the solids. The primary effluent goes over the weirs, and that process continues to the next slide, which is the biological process. This is where I show the before picture to the tours that are actually live, and you can see how nasty that water is, but it's being aerated and it's being consumed by the biological process, which is the main ingredient of how we are able to cleanse the water. And if you want to go back, you can see it in motion. You want to go back?
Sure. Okay.
Well,
There we go.
so no swimming is allowed in the aeration basins. All right, next slide. So this is what is under the microscope and what is in mass quantity in the aeration basin. And you can see what type of biological activity is occurring. And again, there are good bugs and there are bad bugs, and it's the operator's job to make sure that there are a balance of the right mix of microorganisms in there, so we're not overtaxing the colony or understating it. And at the other screen, we could just see that that's the various settling activity from the various tanks, with the end goal being the last one or the top one of what we're putting out into the ocean. Next slide. And just our crack lab staff, we not only do work for our own uses, but we also serve the region in the sense that we do all the beach testing. And we have shared service agreement with school districts and other public agencies. We do all the county testing for them as well. So we do branch out, and it's another revenue source for us to try to maintain our rates at a stable level. Again, this is the third process in the sequence. This is the secondary clarifiers, and you could see the water starting, hopefully start to see the water getting cleaner as it's going through this area before it gets to the equalization basin and then ultimately out to the ocean. Next. But that's me. That's one of the slides. What we try to do is show the before and after, and I'm holding a cup there, which comes out of our sampling tank before it's a sample area, or before it goes out and gets disinfected by chlorine bleach or sodium hypochlorite, which is essentially to you household bleach. And that's what it looks like before it is out to the ocean. Once again, our treatment area, to the left bottom picture, that's the equalization basin. During storm surge, we'll bring that down manually. I mean, just pump that down so we have enough area to handle the storms. Sometimes during a storm surge with what they call inflow or inflow into manholes, we treat up to 60 million gallons a day during a storm event. We are, unlike several other facilities that are like us, we do not on purpose treat stormwater. We are not a combined sewer entity. We treat domestic sewer, but by the nature of storms and flooding in low-lying areas, we do get storm surge, not by design, but by default. And I just covered all that. We have an outfall that goes 1.5 miles into the ocean. So the biosolids aspect is what you can see here is that truck is a Cape May vehicle, and that's a 30-yard dumpster of which they fill up to 25 yards, and they dump to our facility where we put it in a hopper and we convey it to the top of the furnace. That's where the ACUA insignia is up there. Our plans are to redo all of this because we're talking about 40-year-old technology, 40-year-old life. We are under study right now and under design to change this whole matrix. And we will be hopefully under bid for that and under construction for that in 2023, just one of the areas that we will be improving. Next slide. These are centrifuges. When I talked about the product going to the top of a building, these centrifuges spin about 1,500 RPMs and they dry or dewater the solids. The drier they are, the thicker they are, the better the cake, therefore, the better it burns. Hence, less energy in the form of natural gas. That's how our incinerator is fueled. What we are currently doing under our trial program to the right, that is a alternative means of drying or dewatering the cake. Unfortunately, right now, the trial is not panning out too well. And by default, we probably will reinvest into the centrifuge technology, which is on the left, because it's tried and true. The advantages of the rotary presses is that they're less maintenance intensive, they're less energy consumptive, but unfortunately, if they don't put out the cake and they don't put out the throughput, we would have to revert back to what has been known in our industry, but they will be brand new if we are deciding on that technology. And again, that's just a cut sheet of an incinerator. Our larger incinerator has 8 hearths. The sludge comes in at the top where it is pushed to the next hearth via rake arms and teeth. Those little things on the bottom are teeth. And as they go down through the 8th hearth, the bottom hearth is essentially ash. Next week, we will be in a planned maintenance schedule. We take this furnace down twice annually, 2-week duration, and we do preventative maintenance. During that process, we will take all of the hardened sludge out of those hearths and get it ready for the next 6-month interval. Next slide. Once again, that's the overview, and I'm going to hand it off to Amy, who will talk a little bit about our green energy and how we use the various other forms to facilitate our operation.
Thanks, Joe. So, hi, everyone. Just jumping in to give a little overview on our renewable energy projects. As Joe mentioned, the solar and the wind in particular. We were really so happy to be able to use renewable energy at our facility. It's benefits us in so many ways. So I just want to give you a little background as to how it got there and how it all came to be. So you probably got a sense of our operations from Joe's presentation. It takes a lot of energy to clean and treat wastewater. And we're doing a lot of it. I mean, we're by far not the largest, but that's a lot of wastewater every day, 28 to 30 million gallons. And those aeration basins, those aerators, the impellers that are churning up the water, those are like 100 horsepower motors, each one of them, to dewater the biosolids and just to move the waste of water from place to place and to pump it all the way out to the ocean. It's very energy intensive. So that's very costly. And we were really impacted by fluctuations in energy costs. Made it really difficult to budget and to plan, to know what our expenses would be when we really had no control over the cost of our electricity. So back in the early 2000s, someone had from one of our local utilities came to the ACUA and proposed, asked us if we had thought about wind energy. And it sounded like a really good idea. We are in a windy place, a very windy place. And our site was really, had some good things going for it. We have, because we are such a big energy user, we have a little substation already on site, industrial permitting. We are 24/7, as Joe mentioned. We don't stop. We have a demand for energy all the time. And so it really seemed like something that we should look into. Of course, we had to, we knew it was windy, but we had to make sure that it was windy enough. So we gathered data for a full year with a wind tower to measure wind speeds and like that. So everything was looking really good, but then we had to figure out how we would do it, because as a public entity, as much as we want to be using innovative technology, green technology, whenever we can, it has to make sense for us financially. So it's expensive to build a wind farm. And what we did was to partner with a private entity. So we don't actually own the wind farm. We have a partner. It was a wind developer, Community Energy, that brought together investors who formed the JerseyAtlantic wind farm. The owner now is Leeward Energy. It's actually changed hands a few times. That has not impacted our operation at all. But the JerseyAtlantic wind farm was constructed it wasn't a cost to us, but it did cost $12.5 million. There are 5 1.5 megawatt GE wind turbines. And so altogether, there's a 7.5 megawatt production capacity. That's enough for about 2,500 homes. This provides us with about 60% of the electricity for our plant. It's not 100% because it's not always windy. And when it's not windy, we're needing to pull power from the grid. We use about 2.3 or 2.5 megawatts of power. So on a windy day, when we are at full production capacity with the wind farm, we are making more wind power, more electricity than we can use in our facility. So the wind farm owners are able to sell that back to the grid, and that's a bonus for them. How it benefits us is that we have a 20-year agreement with the wind farm owner. And that's a power purchase agreement, and we get our power at a really low rate. It's less than 8 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's about half price. So you can see the savings for us are really significant. not only in the electricity that we don't need to purchase, but there's also a little money that comes to us from the lease revenue. So we get a little rent money from the spots where the turbines sit. So since 2006, when the wind farm was fully operational, we've saved almost $7 million. That's huge. And it's a great benefit to us, but it's also, the environmental benefit is really incredible as well. So we're keeping a lot of emissions out of the atmosphere with this wind farm. We also have solar power at the ACUA. You could see some of our panels from the overview. It's a 500 kilowatt project, 2,700 solar panels. They're on the ground, they're on rooftops, and there's a parking canopy, which was the first one in, it might be in the state, but definitely in South Jersey. I know they're all over the place now at the liquor store and the college and, everywhere, but this was really a first. So all those solar panels provide us with 4% of the electricity at our facility. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, because it's it's money that we don't have to pay to purchase. Now we own the solar panels. This was something that our staff was able to do some calculations ahead of time. And in 2005, 2006, there were some really amazing rebates from the state to incentivize the installation of solar projects. So it was a $3.25 million project, but there was a 57% rebate that we were able to take advantage of. Now, when you own a renewable energy project, you also have the ownership of the renewable energy credits, or for solar, it was the SRECs at the time, solar renewable energy credits. So these credits are generated with the amount of energy that you produce, and they can be sold on the market. We were very conservative about what kind of revenue we would get. And we were really pleasantly surprised when the value of the SRECs really jumped up way beyond what we had anticipated. So we were able to pay off the solar project much quicker than we thought. So it's been a great benefit that way too. So, so also great environmental savings for emissions reductions. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take you on a virtual tour. We have some nice visuals and to tell you a little more about our projects. And this virtual tour is great. It's only a few minutes, but I hope that this is just something to incentivize you to come for a real in-person tour.
The JerseyAtlantic Wind Farm is New Jersey's first commercial wind farm and is owned by Leeward Energy. It's located at the ACUA's wastewater treatment plant in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wastewater is water that comes from drains in your house like sinks, showers, dishwashers, washing machines, and toilets. We treat about 29 million gallons of wastewater each day, but can handle up to 40 million gallons. Here, there are 5 wind turbines, and together they can generate up to 7.5 megawatts of electricity. That's about enough power for 2,600 homes, which is great for the environment and significantly reduces the cost of electricity too. The column is 262 feet, the blades each 120 feet, and at its tallest point when the blade is straight up, it's 380 feet tall. The nacelle is about the size of a small school bus and has large gears inside. On top of that sits the anemometer. That's a weather station that takes a constant reading of the weather conditions and wind speed and direction. That information is instantly sent to a computer, which adjusts the wind turbine's direction and blade pitch. The turbine parts were manufactured by General Electric and the pieces were delivered to ACUA, then assembled on site. There is also a foundation about 75 feet below ground made of concrete and rebar. There are 8 enormous parts that connected together to make each turbine. In fact, each turbine was constructed within 1 to 3 days, and the whole project was completed in December of 2005. They begin generating electricity when wind speeds reach 7 to 8 miles per hour. Wind turbines receive regular maintenance twice each year or as needed. First, the turbine is powered off. Then, workers open a door at the base, attach their equipment to a hoist, and climb a ladder up to the top. There are a few platforms located along the way. Once inside the nacelle, workers can open a hatch to the roof and climb out. Don't worry, they always have a safety harness attached. Routine maintenance includes climbing inside of the nose cone too. Believe it or not, the whole structure actually sways back and forth in the wind. That's by design. Thousands of curious visitors come by each year to learn more about wind turbines, how they operate, and why they're here. ACUA hosts open house tours each summer, inviting locals and Jersey Shore vacationers to stop in to learn more. For more information about the JerseyAtlantic Wind Farm and ACUA's open house tours, please visit us online.
So it is really something to see, and I hope that you'll join us there. I just wanted to mention one other thing for our on-site at our wastewater facility. I mentioned that we are not able to, we only get 60% of our power from wind. If we had more battery power, we could hold on to energy for when we needed it, for when it's not windy. We do have a battery storage project at the wind farm, at the wastewater treatment facility. And we were able to do this with a in partnership with Veridity Energy and a generous grant from the New Jersey BPU. And this is a 1 megawatt battery, lithium ion battery in a containerized unit. And so the benefits of having this battery there is that we can hold on to power when it's generated and release it, whether it would be for our use or to be sold back to the grid when it's most needed. So this battery is not large enough to to run the plant on or to for any kind of significant amount of time. But it is there to demonstrate, how this could work, and it's exciting to think about what will happen as battery technology continues to improve. So I wanted to mention that we also have charging stations at our electric vehicle charging stations at our wastewater facility, and we have lots of plans for the future, both at wastewater and at our solid waste facility. We will be installing solar panels on our landfill here in Egg Harbor Township as part of a community solar project. We will be providing electricity for neighbors in Pleasantville, the housing authority. We are looking into green hydrogen, so using renewable energy to create hydrogen, which can be used as a fuel. Joe will probably will talk about wastewater reuse a little bit, but another project that's happening at our solid waste facility, the landfill gas that's collected, we are working on now to clean it up in a way that we can use it. It'll be pipeline quality, as they call it, and we'll use that to fuel our collection vehicles, all our equipment. We have been converting our fleet to compressed natural gas over the past years, and so being able to actually use gas that we take from the landfill and prevent from going out into the atmosphere is pretty exciting. So Joe, I'll pass it back to you. I don't know if you want to say anything about wastewater reuse.
Real quick, and before I say anything, I wanted to make sure you all knew that Amy was at the top of the windmill.
Yeah, it was
She's
great.
braver than I am. I got to tell you that right now. And they had a wonderful time.
Yes,
going through
if
that.
you come for a tour, I'm afraid we can't take you up to the top.
And I was happy about that. But nevertheless, just a thought on water reuse. We in the state of New Jersey really do not pay attention to water reuse at all. If you're in California, they do. If you're in Florida, they do. If you're in Arizona, they do. Jersey has, I guess, had the benefit of significant rains, unfortunately, maybe sometimes too many. I had a pilot project that I was trying to get across to the DEP with limited success at this point. I wanted to take our effluent that was traveling across in a pipe across a golf course, Seaview Country Club, mine it, treat it, and deliver that for their use or reuse. They discharge or they extract 88 million gallons a growing season, whereby this is water that's going out into the ocean after it's treated. Statistically, the state of New Jersey discharges about 240 million gallons of clean effluent into receiving waters, whereby other communities reuse that. The good point about the Federal Clean Water Act, as we showed on earlier slides, was it cleaned up immensely what was contaminated waterways. The downside of that is centralization did not replenish or did not have a plan to bring the water back. That is a extremely precious commodity. So we continue to try to advocate to the state of New Jersey, who has in their clean water plan or their water master plan a section on water reuse, but it has not been very active. But we will not give up. So that's my little sales pitch on water reuse. A little blurb about preparing for the future. You could see at times the bay does come into the wastewater treatment facility, and this was not even Sandy. This was several years before Sandy, but you could see that we are in low-lying areas, as most wastewater treatment plants are. So after Sandy, we were the beneficiaries of Sandy resiliency funds. And most notably, we were able to improve our reserve power, our emergency power. We have brand new or relatively brand new now emergency power throughout the island. But what was most noteworthy about what happened at Sandy was the stormwater surge. We in central or southern New Jersey were not as prone to the hit that the northern part of the state, particularly Passaic Valley Sewage Authority, which is one of the largest wastewater treatment facilities in the nation. They were just inundated and were just delivering raw sewer to the receiving waters. We were not in that much of a peril, thank God. But as you can see, what Sandy resiliency funds were able to do for us is that green line around our facility is essentially a seawall. And essentially that gives us another 6 to 11 feet of resiliency to stand off any storm surge, which fortunately I was not here. Well, I was not here during the Sandy impact, but fortunately we were not inundated to the degree that others were. But this will give us more time and more resiliency to protect us from that potentiality that with climate change, it's not a potential, it's probably an absolute. Other features of the Sandy Resiliency Fund was to put these portable or erect these portable barriers. This is just a demonstration. Again, we haven't had to use those, thank God, but they will be available because they're portable around low line and most strategic pumping stations. And that's, again, something that was part of the Sandy Resiliency funding. Just for the future and a little blurb on asset management, the biggest fear you have is a broken force main. We have experienced several of those, and unfortunately, unlike water facilities, you don't build redundant lines. It's just impossible and economically infeasible to run parallel lines throughout your system. So we do have a strategic plan to investigate our facilities annually, and that's with different technologies. As you can see the video that is in the middle of the screen, this is a force main, which used to not be able to be videotaped, but there's a new technology that we implemented here called SmartBall. And SmartBall gives you the diagnostics of the interior of a pipe and gives you pre-warning of where your failures may be. So we institute these preventative investigative processes to assure ourselves of minimizing our exposure to failure. And that is it. And again, Amy and I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share who we are, what we do. We're very proud of what we do. We think we're extremely innovative. And by and large, this is a great place to have to work, and our coworkers are just a wonderful and very dedicated staff. So with that, I guess we could open it up to questions and answers if anybody has any.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Let me pull up the chat. We have a few questions in here. Let me start. So the first one I have is, I know this is really technical, but what are the microorganisms that are used? I believe this is for when you were discussing the 6 different chambers. And how do you monitor and adjust the mix of the microorganisms?
Okay, well, there's all kinds, but mostly filamentous, protozoa. I'm not the biologist here, but they're the 2 prominent. Filamentous is the balancing act. You don't want too many of that creature in there. Now, how to measure that? Because our lab staff is taking samples throughout the day, we have a count of what the biological process is in the aeration basin. And from the secondary clarifiers, we feed microorganisms into the aeration basin if we need more of the process. If there's too many, it's the aspect of that treatment is called wasting. We will relieve of some of the solids out of the bottom of the aeration tank and bring it back to the head of the plant. So that is the finesse part, and those counts are taken throughout the day, and the operators try to balance that with either introducing more bugs into the aeration basin or wasting more, and that's the daily finesse, if you will. And again, as much as an art as it is a science, and those who have been doing this for years kind of have a feel for it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you. The next question is, and I believe you addressed this, what is the percentage of energy that the wind farm produces for your use?
Yeah, that's about 60% and about 4% from solar.
4% from solar.
And interesting enough, I think one of the slides, at least in the video, you could see across the footprint, there are 5, as we mentioned, but one of them wasn't spinning. And that could have been due to maintenance, but just generally on a given day, the wind characteristics do not spin them all at the same time.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal
it's amazing.
that small of a footprint.
The wind speed can vary up to 5 miles an hour just over that small area.
Oh, in the same area. That's
Yeah.
Yep.
The next question is, are anaerobic digesters used in the process?
No, we are an activated sludge facility, the original Original AC plant, those two domes that I showed you were actually a digesting process. We're activated sludge.
The next question, any consideration of generating energy from incinerated bio waste?
Yes, we have had numerous studies on that, but there's two impediments. Because we have the arrangement with wind, that's our primary focus, and that's the long-term arrangement. As Amy mentioned, the excess wind is sold to the grid. The Atlantic Electric infrastructure cannot handle any more production of power than what we actually were over-generating according to their standards. We would love at some point in time to be fully island, meaning that we would not rely on the grid in any shape, form at all. However, because the wind is unpredictable, if you will, we would have to find a partner who would want to convert the heat off of the incinerator, but it has to be profitable. But because of the impediments, not only because of the arrangement we have with the wind, as first and foremost, we take it from them first, grid second, there may not be enough value for a partnership to invest in heat transfer. Now, there may be if the infrastructure of Atlantic Electric would be able to take it. It's a dialogue that we have annually, but it's something that we would like to do, but it's not in the cards at this juncture.
Thank you. The next question we have is there any check or regular visits to the output in the ocean? What does it look like out there? Is it a dead zone?
The state of New Jersey requires that our testing of our effluent is at the plant. So obviously what is at the plant is our measuring stick. Now, if you're talking about maintenance thereof, we inspect that outfall pipe at least twice annually. Every 2 years. The last inspection was about a year ago, and there has been no degradation in that line. Is there a dead zone? One of the reasons why we have a Y connection out there is to not create a spoil or a diffusion into the depository area. It kind of is diffused by the Y connection out in the ocean.
It's supposed to be a good fishing spot.
That's what they say.
Probably. The next question, and you did address this, how vulnerable is ACUA to sea level rise and climate change? And you showed us your seawalls, and I actually had a question when looking at that picture. The seawall doesn't go all the way around, so I'm curious how that works.
That was because of sheer elevations on our facility. The seawall is where our biggest concerns are. Okay. So where the seawall is not located, that is the higher elevations, and we are above the level of what we would have had without the seawall.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. The next question we have is, if 5 towers provide 60% of energy used, is Leeward thinking about adding several more?
The answer, Amy, is more, but we maxed out with 5. If they could have put more here, they would have, just because of the constraints. We are an island on an island, if you will. And what I wanted to kind of point out, and I forgot to do this area here is the remnants of the old Atlantic City Sewerage Company plant. And essentially the footprint of this island was cut off right here. All of this area is fill, predominantly from demolished hotels prior to the casino industry. Wow. I kid that there may be some dead bodies in there somewhere or two, but I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, there would have been more if they could have put more. Spacing between them is important, and just the geographic footprint of our island would not have allowed for any more. But they would have.
Okay. Next question, what are you doing to protect the birds that fly through the wind farm?
Interesting topic. Go ahead, Amy.
So that's really good. And I should have included something when that was a big issue when the wind farm was proposed. the New Jersey Audubon Society was very concerned, and rightly so. You can put a wind farm in a really bad spot and, threaten birds. So there was a 3-year study that was done with Audubon, and what they found or postulated was, based on their research, was that there would be 1 to 2 bird deaths per turbine per year. So that's, up to 10 bird deaths per year. And that was a good estimate of the wind technicians and staff that are on site have noted that they do not think it's that high, that they have not noticed, birds on the ground there. Bats are another concern. Bats are another migratory species, and that's something data was gathered on that too. If there was to be a problem, you could shut a wind farm down for the time that species are migrating through. We haven't fortunately had to do that. So it'd be great if no birds were harmed at all, but it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act. We're creating a lot of really clean energy, and there's a lot of threats to birds, outside of wind turbines, cats, and buildings. And yeah.
I think one of the studies that I wasn't around, but it's more of her bailiwick, but one of the studies produced, there were more bird kills flying into the side of the Atlantic City skyline than there were here. I've been here 8 years. I believe I've only witnessed 1 bird kill in my 8 years here.
Their skyline is it's a lot of reflective surfaces, so
exactly,
it's quite confusing.
Yeah.
So the next question: does the battery provide emergency backup power in case of power outage?
Once again, we want battery power, but the battery that we would need to be resilient would be massive. So we engaged in that project just for a demo project. The answer to that question is no. We have to rely on the emergency power network that we have. They're diesel fueled, they're large. There's several of them on the facility that power different components of the treatment process. But the answer to that question is that battery really doesn't do anything for us other than minor issues. Again, it's a demonstration project for the future.
Thank you. Next one, not needed now, but how large a task would it be to add desalination to your operations?
Well, given the footprint of our island, that would be one impediment. I think that would be a massive undertaking. We haven't had to look at that, fortunately. Some of our service areas in the Pinelands, which is naturally protected, and we have a major reservoir of clean, fruitful drinking water as long as we take care of it. So unfortunately for us, we haven't had to look at that aspect of our process.
Yeah. So next question, what is green hydrogen?
All right, green hydrogen is another way of producing energy, and why we're interested in it and why South Jersey Gas is interested in it, because it would be a means of producing a different form of energy that we actually could use the derivative of that in our cooling processes. So do you have anything to add to the green energy aspect?
I would just say, again, with renewable energy, some critics of renewable energy will say, oh, well, it's intermittent, and, the sun's not always shining, the wind isn't always blowing. When you can create hydrogen from renewable energy, it's kind of like, something that you can have for when you need it. It's an energy source. Yeah, in a sense. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Do you consider the water you discharge as potable water, or gray water?
I wouldn't say it's gray, and I wouldn't say it's potable. It's somewhere in between. Again, you could see the clarity of it, but again, at 85% removal, and we aspire to 95 plus, I could tell you I could drink it, but I wouldn't, as part of my tour, I don't put that glass up to my face, but it's like, I started my career in Hamilton, and we had to build a treatment facility that was distributing flow back into a Pinelands receiving water. Now you go up a level in treatment in terms of tertiary treatment, third level of treatment. Our discharge quality in Hamilton at that time had more stringent requirements than the drinking water requirements as it related to nitrate nitrogens. So the drinking water standard was 7 parts per million, and we had a discharge at less than 2 parts per million. So the point of the matter is, where you discharge is very important to the quality of the effluent. We are discharging 30 million to 40 million gallons into the ocean, which I don't know what the statistic of that water body is, but dilution is why you're allowed to have less of a quality, but not back to the 60s when it was no quality.
Have you had problems with fatbergs?
With what?
Fatbergs.
Fatbergs, like the
Wipes and grease.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, the big clumps of.
Oh, yeah, I thought I heard fathead. I mean, yeah. What happens in a collection system now, everybody's getting, well, they don't want the problem. So they have what they call muffin monsters or communutors, and they place them at their, let's say, municipal pumping station. So what that does is grind all those things up, and it sends it down the pipe, but somehow they start to coagulate back again. And if you saw one of those pictures, they end up in our headworks. And yes, do we have problems with them? It's a $1 billion a year industry, the flushable wipes industry. So you're trying to beat a very, very strong lobby to put at least the right nomenclature on your packaging. They say flushable. It's not flushable. Like I said before, there's only one flushable thing that you should flush, and that's toilet paper.
I had a question related to that. Do you have resources to share that we could share with our commissioners for communication about just that issue?
Yep.
Sure. See, if you took one thing away from here, it was flushable wipes. Thank you.
Yes. Keep
It's a
the
pet
grease
peeve of
out,
mine.
so.
Yeah. Thank you. Another question. What countries have systems that you've learned from?
Well, wastewater treatment is not a new industry. I think where the countries lead us overseas is their methodology of getting rid of the biosolids. Mm-hmm. New Jersey, particularly this region of EPA, would really like to put incinerators out of business. They make it very, very difficult for us to sustain. So in the European countries, and particularly the Asian countries, they have a process called gasification. And we would like to implement that methodology successfully, not only for sludge incineration, but for municipal solid waste. We've been on many, many investigations throughout the years, but the permitting aspect for someone to invest in that technology with no assurance that they will be able to conclude is a very, very significant financial risk for them. So unless New Jersey became more open to trials of different technology, I think we will stay the way we are with the processes that we have, which is composting, incineration, or unfortunately, landfill, which in Jersey, one of the reasons why we can't landfill is not because it's environmentally insensitive. It is their concern about capacity. And we have that concern here. We have about 6 to 7 years left at our municipal landfill before we have to they're not going to let us build another landfill. So it's going to be conveyed to some other county or some other state.
Thank you. And we have one last question. What percentage of your energy consumption is the incineration? What is the carbon footprint, and are there options to reduce it?
Well, I don't know if I have a percentage for that, but we fire our incinerator with natural gas. Unless we're curtailed, we have to go to diesel, which is very, very, very infrequent. I could tell you what my consumption is. It's higher now than it should be because of the inefficiencies of old equipment. Hence the reason why we are designed to improve, upgrade our dewatering facilities, upgrade our thickening facilities, upgrade our conveyance facilities. If we are successful, and will be successful on that, we will reduce our demand on natural gas. Because, as I said earlier, the thicker and the drier a sludge is going to the incinerator, the less energy it takes to burn it.
And thank you. One last one that just slipped in. Have you thought about expanding your solar energy?
The solar energy is maxed out on our facility here. The only other place that we can potentially, where was I? Oh, the only other place potentially that we could think about solar is on a warehouse that we have. And that's this one right here. That's the only place. But in order to put solar, because we're pretty well maxed out on the site here, as you can see, that is where we are. We put solar everywhere we could. This facility, this particular structure is the only one that we will be able to add. And the reason we haven't done that yet, this roof needs to be repaired.
Okay.
There's only so much money in a governmental budget.
Great. Thank you very much. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking us on a virtual tour. Liz, did you have anything else?
I did, and I would just want to thank again Joseph and Amy so much for being here with us, and thank you all, the attendees, for your interesting questions and your participation. And just a reminder that our last session of the Fundamentals for Effective Environmental Commissions is tonight at 7 p.m., where we'll be discussing and going through the new plastic bag ban and the other plastic ban that comes into play on May 4th. So we will see you later tonight, and thank you again to our presenters.
Thanks again. Thank
Right,
you.
thanks for having us.
Thanks for having
Good
us.
afternoon.
Yeah.